All right, we are here with Terri Fraser for the Finding Gallery talk at M Galleries PNA. Hi, Terri.
Hi, Frank. Hi, everybody.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
I'm going to say welcome to the talk for Findings. Findings is a whole bunch of new work for me.
That's right.
And it's not new in the sense that it just all of a sudden happened. It's actually, I've been wanting to do three-dimensional work since in college. And I started off doing the three-dimensional stuff by adding wire, which actually had the, I'm not looking at any of them right now, but the squirrely shapes that I make, those kind of organic squirrely circles. I would add wire and poke them into my paintings, and I was like, this looks like crap. And then I thought, well, maybe if I make them into a pillow, that'll make it three-dimensional. And I made it into pillows and started adding bees, and I was like, well, that looks even worse. Really devalued, I thought, the paintings themselves. So life got in the way, and there was a big break, and a lot of work came into my life, and not necessarily art. But when I got to go back into being a full-time artist, I started thinking about it again, and it slowly morphed, and there are a lot of disasters in the studio at home. A lot of disasters.
Excellent.
Yeah, I know.
Disasters are good.
Yeah, so one of the ones I did was we have deer fencing that we acquired when we bought our home, and a giant roll of old deer fencing was over in the backyard, and so I thought, oh, let me take that. And you know the things that you make casts, the plaster wraps with the casts? I was like, let me try that out. Blech. It's terrible. If I do it again, I have to approach it very differently. So that didn't work, and it also wasn't square, they were rectangles. And so I did a little searching, and I found the square, I think it's called hardware cloth maybe, or something like that, but it's little squares, and so it's these pieces. And I was like, that's great, because then I can actually use it like canvas and put it around my stretchers. And I don't know if anybody knows who Megan Klin is, but she is an artist that works with encaustics, which is what all of this is made out of, and which is hot beeswax. And I went and saw some of her work at Art Fair 14C whenever, I don't know, sense of timeline. And just fell in love with it. And she was working on paper, and she was working on like old wooden boxes and putting pieces and things together and making these amazing things. So I was like, that's it. So with the wire and the encaustic, I was able to explore my landscapes, which are in a much more abstract way than I used to paint. But so these are the very first kind of ones that I started with, and these are probably really the first ones. There's actually string in here, creating the horizon line.
The horizons.
And I really just wanted to play with that, and the contrast of the dark encaustic in the back, and then the light encaustic. And then I played more over here, and it's actually the same encaustic colors that I'm using. However, I have upcycled paper and tissue paper from at home that I was using, and the light moments are the pigment sticks that you heat up and push into it. This one I also did some sewing with some waxed cotton thread as well. But these are where I was, and I decided I needed a little bit more. And as I go into a little bit more, which I'm going to look at the other piece, I want to share with you another artist who I really love her work. She did what I want to do, which is make my squirrelies into giant metal sculptures, but she beat me. But she wrote something for a show she had a pace. Knots are everywhere. They're about weaving and life. You have to do a knot to go on to the next stitch, which I thought was you have to pause and think about that for a little bit. And if you weave or do any kind of moment with knotting or crochet, there is this element of rhythm and life that gets kind of absorbed into it, along with all the thoughts that you have while you're doing your work.
Mm-hmm.
So from there I went into really going crazy and picking up the textural moments that the weaving brings into it, which I really, really, really love.
Mm-hmm.
And I also was doing collaging at home or at home in the studio, inside the studio, with gouache and water-soluble charcoal, and these are the tea bags that I had.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my old tea bags. So I like to bring in some of that mundane, daily kind of thing to add to that layer of storytelling about the weaving and whatnot. So this piece is pretty massive. This is 2 layers of wire, actually. And wool and jute and cotton and handmade paper. I didn't make it. But it is a huge collage of all different kinds of elements to bring out a story.
Mm.
So.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier, I thought it was really interesting that the Linda Banglis quote you just said, like
Mm-hmm.
how she came up in conversation, like literally the last time I was here with someone, and I felt like you were moving in that kind of direction of the fallen painting, like the painting that's slowly coming off.
Coming off.
You know?
Yeah, I don't know what the obsession is with that three-dimensional.
The push, yeah.
Wanting it to go three-dimensional would be a painting, but it's definitely there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I feel like I'm on my way to really figuring out what it is I am trying to say and need to say through these three-dimensional pieces. I also upcycle old fabric. It's my great-grandmother's old tablecloth.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that cool? Thank you, Granny.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I loved it because it fit really nicely with the smaller hardware cloth. So its grids and the hardware grids are almost the same size, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
A little bit of an Enzo in there.
Mm-hmm.
But wherever you go, you're going to look and you'll see I'm always going to have some sort of landscape moment. And the landscapes usually are a horizon line.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to skip over this real fast to get back to that.
Yeah.
So this one, I have my collage piece from in the studio, and I did several different kinds of weaving techniques. And you can see I changed it up here so that I could create the horizon line with the weaving moment.
Yeah. Well, I love thinking about these as pillows.
They
Yeah.
are caged pillows.
So can you speak to that a little bit? Like that's such a fascinating way to think about painting as a pillow or something of that nature.
They kind of turned and morphed into the cage pillow because of the way the wire works, and I like that hard, soft, that juxtaposition
right.
of like, oh, it's such a nice little pillow, let me put my head on it and be like, oh, ow.
Right.
Not soft at all. So I like playing with those elements of those moments when you have something that looks fun and soft and approachable, but yet, it has the thorns, like the rose. It's like beautiful, and yet it's got those owie thorns to protect itself. So is it protection? Is it? I don't know what it is, but I do like playing with that. So these are how I started. And because I make those squirrely organic circles, I couldn't figure out how to put them into these works, and I thought, well, why don't I just make them three-dimensional? And so up in the ceiling, I've created a kind of chandelier of all of those squirrely circles. Do you want to turn the light out?
Yeah. Get the full effect. Yeah, that's It's magnificent.
Which can stand on their own, hang on a wall, or be suspended from the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And they were a challenge to make, but at the same time, absolutely loved every moment of figuring it all out. And while I was making them, I could see the light coming through, and it always reminded me of that dappled light when you go into the forest and you're walking around and you see the light coming through, and that little kind of giggle that you get from looking at the leaves in the forest.
I love the giggle. That word really stuck with
Isn't
me.
that right?
Yep, it's perfect.
It's a giggle to me.
It's
Giggle.
perfect.
It's sunlight giggling in, outside. So I wanted to figure out ways to do that, and haven't quite achieved where I really want to land with it, but you probably saw the light when you went around. But that is why I brought in these light elements, so that you could see a little bit of the giggle, that fun, how's it look with the light, and also with the weaving as well with them, because it adds a whole other story and layer of texture and another element into the piece, which I enjoy. So it's about the tension and the softness and the, all of that.
The duality, yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So from there, I did these small works, and they too are all landscapes. And what they are basically the negative space to me from what the grids are.
Okay.
Now I took a few extra liberties in changing the sizes of them and creating different moments with, the layering of it and the angles and whatnot. However, it was about creating that negative space and then also layering the paint down. And if you load up your brush, how long can I paint and apply and make the mark until I'm out of seeing the mark? And then I have to load up again. And then I also love it when you look in at it, if you see the different paints that I don't always mix it all the way together. And when you unload, you'll see moments of like a streak of the yellow that might come through, or there might be a stronger moment of the blue coming through. And playing with gouache, it all works that kind of in a really crazy, wonderful way. So has a great way of changing as it dries out, which is always a fun moment to have that. Ooh, look what that did. Love
Right.
that.
Well, that's the time element, right?
The time element.
Time is always a major part of the work. Right?
Yeah, a little bit of that random element that comes into some things that are great. Now it's, the Bob Ross, the happy little freaking accidents. Sometimes those are your best things when, oh shit, who knew that did that? And I love that random moment of it. I think that's why I'm also drawn to the jute and whatnot, because I'm sorry, I'm going to say, she's a little bitch. And she has lots of things coming off, and it's never even, and getting her to be able to manipulate the way you want it, she doesn't care. It's like my frizzy days, where my hair is just like, no. Yeah, so, but I love that moment, because sometimes those are the best things that, the natural elements are saying, no, we're going to be natural. A little bit of that Brancusi, let wood be wood, and brass be brass, and marble be marble.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, the pieces, the hanging pieces, I feel are like a direct relationship with your ceramics.
Yes.
And can you speak about the ceramic part of you and how that relates to the current body of work?
I would have loved to have done more ceramic work, but the studio was not open to me. But they are kind of in correlation to the ceramics and that organic shape that I like to play with, which also
Yeah, finds its way here.
Comes from my, I don't, is it an Enzo? Not really, because an Enzo is a one breath moment of being, and these are just squiggling around and, putting it into a space and a story, and I don't know what the heck they are yet, but I can't stop doing them. So yeah, the ceramics, yeah, they're not in this show.
Right. Well, I feel like that they are.
You feel like they are?
Yeah, like especially like that, this idea and just the way, because seeing, after a few shows of seeing your progression or evolution has been really fascinating for me personally.
Well,
seeing like the movement towards a dimensional thing, like, and the gradation away from like landscape into like this abstracted grid circle motif.
Right.
And it's been exciting for me to see that.
Well, thank you. I love doing it, and I would do more ceramic, and I would like to do larger pieces, and I've done metal as well, and I would like to do bigger metal pieces, but unfortunately that's very expensive.
Yes.
So, and Linda Benglis beat me to it. Hers are gorgeous.
Oh, Linda.
Darn you, Linda.
I know, she's so good. So good.
Yeah, sorry, it's a little bit after Thanksgiving. I'm a little tired. I'm losing my train of thought.
No worries. So well, can you talk about, I'm always interested in color choices.
The color choices.
Yes.
Yeah, that was on my list of talking about. So, in caustic, because it's beeswax, you think, oh, no big deal. Well, buying the colored encaustics, this much is probably about $75. And I use probably, this one probably has an entire pound of just beeswax on it. Because it has, what I do is I dip my tissue paper into the beeswax, and I also cover my hardware cloth with beeswax. And you can see that I've got the white in here, and then I've got the clear in here, and I'm playing with the colors, and I limited it, one, to find a sense of calm, and two, because each wax has its own container, and it just makes for needing more space, and it's very expensive, and so I just went down and dirty, and just kept with basically white and its blue ochre are the colors, and then natural beeswax. If I add more color, it's usually coming from a pigment stick, which is oil-based. So that's usually how I'll do things, although this is actually white wax on the top of this one, and this is pigment stick in here. So I love when you heat up the wax and you see the paint, which doesn't, some people can. Vincent Hawley has a method of where the wax and the pigment actually absorb and bind together. I don't know what his wax is or what, his science.
The ratio,
is. Yeah. But normally it doesn't, and so you'll get this separation moment. This, well, it's a part of it, but it's not. It's in it, but it's not, and so you get this kind of marbling kind of.
So like suspended pigment in the wax.
Yeah, and I really like that moment. I'm a crazy person that's like, don't blend.
Right. Why?
That's one of those little random moments in trying to control it, like in the one over there with the Enzo and the thistle.
Yeah.
I worked at making it so that it didn't, like, you could still see the line of the circle. But I love that kind of like moment of how is it, meshing together, and it doesn't really want it.
Well, the one that I thought was a wonderful use of color is this one. Can you, like
Is it
the red is so
Oh, the red.
striking in comparison to, I find that it's a real standout because of just the saturation level.
So that's the collage piece that I had that I brought into it. So in the studio, I'll play with a little bit more color. This has alcohol inks and my avocado ink that I made on it. And there's a sketch that I had done for another painting another time that I decided to pull it all together. And the red, that was in the studio. So that, this one just got lucky.
Right.
So, but someone has taken this beauty home.
That's right. Yay! Indeed.
Yay.
That's very good.
So,
Would you like to ask a question?
Oh, please, yeah. Go right, please.
So this piece that you're featuring right now, to me it has a very strong vibe of a winter scene. Was that your intention when you did it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so you had the vision, it just didn't kind of like all of a sudden, what I do, all of a sudden I'm working, oh, this looks like a blah, 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 let's go with it.
Right, let's go with it. No, it is a winter scene because it is basically, I guess it's kind of this time of the year kind of scene, because the sketch that I did has a few leaves, but they're dying. I like the dead things. I like the skeletal forms of flowers.
Is it an early stone?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the red, are those cardinals, possibly?
Yes!
I mean, what else,
That's
what else than that red would ever appear unless they're holly berries? which are too big to be holly berries.
Yep.
No, but it does, it just
Besides,
has,
Halle Berry's a big movie star, she would be.
it just has such a great, I mean, they all have a great vibe, but that's the, of all years, that's the one that I see in actual, like, there's no question it's a
It's
winter scene.
winter.
Yeah.
It's winter. Well,
It's
and I
so cool
also
because
started.
it's semi-abstract and semi-figurative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that
And when
play
you watch
between-
it, it's almost like you're getting multiple experiences, because like your head starts referencing like Curry or Knives or something. You know what I mean? But then it does, and it's like, wow, okay.
But it's on a metal pillow.
Yeah. I didn't think of them as pillows. But I actually thought this one looked like it was billowing, like the wind was blowing it in.
Blowing
Yeah. Let's go over.
Oh, that's a cool thing. So the other thing I like that I intentionally worked at is because behind this one has, I've got the blue tissue paper that's on another grid underneath it. So I intentionally tried to make like a starry night. It was splattering from the white so that you could see it underneath and have that peekaboo moment so that you had another like, wait, what?
Yeah, I didn't notice until you pointed out that there's something back there.
There is something back there. So that billowing comment that you made that's kind of cool. I didn't think of it that way because I was just looking up at it like I rested my head here and then I rolled over and then I swished this side in. Like that's how I look at it.
It would be cool if you could put like some kind of lighting inside it or something.
So that's partially why the
Because it would
lighting
illuminate
is-
what's in there and it would draw
Yes.
attention to it. Because it's obscure enough, it's never going to upstage the outside.
Right, and so the problem is it's encaustic, so you can't have anything too, terribly hot. And the other problem I've had trying to figure it out.
Fluorescent?
I don't think I want fluorescent.
Yeah, it probably wouldn't be the right aesthetic.
LEDs are okay, but the best kind of light that I've seen that I really like is the neon light. I feel like the neon light has that kind of glowy moment, and if you're not really seeing the neon portion of it, but you get the glow from it, that would really make it kind of sing and have those elements that will play with you between, having it on in a bright light, off, that sort of thing, and what does it look like when the light comes through the other pieces and parts. And what other story did I throw in there that you didn't notice, but now you do. But that's how I got to these lights. Like, ideally, I would love to create in the circles of, neon light that goes around so that it is really just glowing.
And you should point out wanted too, that they make great centerpieces on your dining room table. If you put as like a candle in the center and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they go every
There's
which way.
multi-purpose.
Yeah, they go every which way. They,
I have one just sitting on my coffee table.
yeah,
Sitting.
they look great up on a wall. They look great there. I've had them so that I've had them in multiples, just kind of hanging out in front of each other and just sitting there as like an installation sitting on my floor in my studio. And
You could also hang them over a crib with a baby.
with a mobile. Yeah.
That'll be an interesting kid when he grows up.
Right.
See things a little differently.
Right. Oh, you have to make it what? White, black, and red?
Yeah, right, you're not exactly a primary color kind of artist.
So, but
That's why the red over there jumps out so much.
jumps out.
That's
Yeah,
right.
It does.
Certainly.
It does. I think I had another piece at one point that had some red in it too. Oh no, I
Did
do.
you
It's
ever-
outside. It's on one of my lamps.
Did you ever think about combining these things into a mobile? So that they're all kind of connected to
Doing
parts
like a
of.
Calder kind of movie.
Exactly.
I have tried that before.
Oh.
I am not
You
very.
weren't crazy about the results?
No, it is not a strength of mine finding that balance kind of thing. And
It almost
The lamps-
requires like
Math.
somebody who's like an engineer rather
You
than
think?
somebody who's a painter or artist.
not
Yeah.
a math genius.
You
And
can collaborate
just-
with an engineer.
Right, I know. There are a lot of people I would like to collaborate. This piece in the center, just getting those two sides to balance
Yeah.
evenly, that was a really big challenge. Like, that was really, really, really hard because every time you put something, a little bit of weight on it, it shifted the way things.
Right, and you want it to be somewhat, you don't want it to be
I
like
didn't
this.
want it to be, cuckoo. So,
Cuckoo, but not cuckoo coo.
yeah, cuckoo's good. Cuckoo's good. We like cuckoo. We don't like cuckoo.
Right. The
That's
added,
crazy.
the extra coup we don't want.
So,
Well, you mentioned the outside. Let's why don't we take a walk outside and see
oh sure,
the
because
hanging.
it's like
Let's
super
do it.
warm outside.
That's right.
Actually, it's
We can bear it for a
nice
moment.
time of day to be outside.
We can bear it for a moment.
I'm gonna look through the window.
So these are a major part of the exhibition. We can't keep it out of the talk here.
So these are 3 more of the lights that you can't really see because the sun is setting and it's super
Oh,
bright
so
on
you
us
come
right
here
now.
in the dark when you're not really supposed to be here.
I know, and when we're not here.
Maybe right when it gets dark.
Right. Oh, there was a perfect instance for the opening when it just worked. So do you want to share the outside pieces, like the ideas for the outside versus inside?
From the outside to the inside.
Mhm.
So these are just more of the lights that you can't really see how they are playing. But you can see I've got a little bit of red in one of them.
That's right.
And
Well, at least you got the setting sun coming through them. That helps.
it does help, right? That's some of that giggle. You can see the
Yeah.
Blue Bohemian at the end has the light really nicely coming through.
Yeah.
And I just explored ways that were within my limitations of how I can get to start finding that way of creating that giggle and creating an art that is also lit up. So there's
Yeah.
weaving, there's collaging, there is light fixtures
Yeah,
and all
well,
of that in there.
To
so.
that point, I really love thinking about these as like a hybrid natural light, artificial light object. You know, they're a hybrid of that. You know, that they're meant to be exposed to the outside light and also have its own artificial
Have
light.
its own artificial light. Yes.
Yeah, we
Yes.
can go back in.
Thank
I wanted to get a little bit of that. Whoa, hey, where we go?
So, are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Good. Everyone's good. Great.
All right. Well, Terri, thank you so much for a really powerful exhibition. Really knocked it out of the park.
Well,
You know,
thank you.
And you used like the whole space so wonderfully.
I know, I thought about
You
it.
filled it so well. And I thank you so much
No,
for
thank
this
you,
wonderful
and
talk.
thank you for letting
And thanks
me
for
have it.
coming, everybody, to see this.
Thank you.